Cap, the summer of soccer has begun. It is no longer the spring of soccer. By the way, you like the new look? We've got a new color scheme now.
Yeah, I see that, man. You're big time.
7 years of looking like the NWO out of WCW, and nothing wrong with that. But Jason was like, "Yeah, let's go network and let's go silver and black." So that's how we are now. And then I think we're going to have gear at some point. So how was the road, and how was looking at baseball from afar?
It was amazing. We were in Cooperstown, New York for youth baseball mecca.
Wow.
Yeah, so tournament up there. We're up there for 6 days. It was amazing. Awesome experience for my son. I really enjoyed it. So it was tremendous.
How much history do the two of you know about baseball? And obviously going to Cooperstown, you get to learn, but how much did you know, and how much of a history nerd were you going in, and how much did you get to share and learning with your son?
Well, I definitely know more of the history than he does. A decent amount. I grew up a huge baseball fan, huge Red Sox fan. That was number one in our house, was the Red Sox. So really big into baseball. So knew some of the history, the big aspects of things, but they do a really good job when you go to the Hall of Fame up there of showing an intro video.
Okay.
It does a really good job, especially for the younger generation, of kind of talking about some of the older players, some of the things they did, some interviews, and why the Hall of Fame is so prestigious to them and things. So it was a really cool video that kind of set the stage for the museum, because the museum, honestly, I thought it could have been a little bit more interactive for younger people.
Okay.
It's great if you're a history buff and just want to read a ton of different things. But a bunch of 12-year-olds weren't really into that.
Yeah, those of us old dudes want to sit there and go, "Wow, that's a really cool glove. That's a really cool bat." And then the youngins are sitting there going, "Well, how can I get involved into this 3D experience and all those kinds?" I definitely understand that. So
that's exactly what I was thinking, John. I thought, man, it would be cool if they had this interactive 3D thing where it was like you could step into a virtual batting cage and face like a Nolan Ryan fastball or a Pedro Martinez curveball or something like that, right? How cool that would be.
All right. So when you were growing up a Red Sox fan, was it Fred Lynn, Jim Rice, Carlton Fisk kind of thing, or was it more the group of stupids with Johnny Damon and all that?
Yeah, it was a little bit after those guys. So, I mean, then I grew up with like Mike Greenwell and Mo Vaughn, but then, the era that I really remember, who everyone remembers, is like Manny Ramirez and Pedro and Dustin Pedroia and Big Papi, obviously, Nomar Garcia-Parra.
Nomar. When it comes to other sports, and your mentoring, when it comes to that, do you bring in other examples from outside of soccer when you're talking about how athletes handle themselves? Like, do you ever bring in Kobe into a discussion when you're talking to mentees or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we bring in anything that we can find that's relevant. And, athletes go through a lot of the same things, just in different sports. And so for sure. And we can all learn from, great athletes, whether they're, in basketball or gymnastics or swimming or golf, tennis, it doesn't matter. So much of it is the mental side of the game. So for sure, I'm always reading things and looking at things. And and I can't remember exactly what it was, but Bryson DeChambeau said something about the mental side of the game after his win. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's a really good clip. I should get that and use that. So I'll have to go back and find that.
Well, and you get to learn how athletes handle things. I mean, you mentioned golf. You have to handle everything yourself. And short of having a caddy there who can consult you on, okay, you need to take your 3D printed 8-iron and hit it, 190 yards. You've got to do all that stuff yourself. And so I can understand the idea of taking stuff from stars and players and champions and things like that, because at times when you're out there playing soccer, yes, it's a team thing, but at the same time, you have all of your own self processes that you've got to navigate through, and to have those solo efforts in athletics, I would imagine that helps you out in kind of translating things mentally at times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because you're right. Of course, soccer's a team game, but we're only inside our own heads, right? We're looking through our own lenses. So, and those lenses need to be clear, and in order to give ourselves the best chance for success. So, yeah, absolutely, we can gain things from athletes from any other sport, honestly.
Katie Weaver's in this morning, and she says the Roger Federer Dartmouth commencement is worth a watch for some great mental game nuggets. So,
Thank you.
So Mike, you writing that down?
I'm writing it down.
Okay, so the Federer Dartmouth commencement. So he's wearing a robe, and he's probably got an honorary doctorate in success or something like that from Dartmouth. We mentioned the whole idea of being a solo thought in a team game. And for me, it would take a while for me to understand that at times it's okay to be selfish, though. I mean, when it comes to your own activities, I know that it's a team game and things, but there are times I think that you've got to keep an eye on yourself. I'm not going to say think for yourself and lock everybody else out, but you've got to keep an eye on yourself to make sure that you're not straying in mental places that you shouldn't go, or physical things that you shouldn't do, or treating things emotionally that you shouldn't be doing. How long did it take you to understand that, yeah, it's okay to sometimes to look out for number one off the field, because that helps you on the field with what you're doing?
Yeah, a little while. And I think that's just because I was a very selfless athlete, and just, hey, team first, I'll follow orders, listen to the coach and listen to everything, and do what is asked and all that stuff, which is really important. But, at some point you do need to, look out for yourself, and understand that, kind of what your body needs, what you need to be prepared and to do well, because ultimately, that's what's important is playing well. A lot of the stuff that we do throughout a week, or preparation and all that stuff, is just to play well and give ourselves a chance to win games and do things the right way. So, like, small example, we obviously had some strength coaches in with Tata, and did some exercises that I didn't know were known to man. And,
oh, really? Really?
And thankfully, I was at a point in my career, older and confident in things, where I was like, I'm not going to do that exercise because I want to be able to play on the weekend, and that's more important than me doing this exercise. And so, small example of someone who's meaning well and wants to do things well, and but for me, it was like, no, I can't do that, and I don't think that's in my best interest. So I didn't.
When did you develop that fortitude? I guess, for lack of for putting it politically correct, when did you develop that fortitude? Was it when you were a pro, or where along your pro path, or in college, or when?
Yeah, definitely not until I was a pro. I think I don't remember. Like, I look back and I think about some of the things I did in college, where I'm like, God, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I know that, again, people are meaning well, but I look back and I think, God, that was silly. So definitely as a pro, like when I went over to Denmark, I was very used to, hey, the day after a game is either off or just really chill, and they had a pretty good session the day after a game. And then the second day was off. And my body was just not accustomed to that and able to do that. And so I basically every day after a game was in the gym, either by myself or with, other injured guys or stuff. And so it was like, I understand this is what the team does, but for me, I need this. So that type of stuff I wasn't able to do that until I was a pro, or understand that till I was a pro, and a few years into being a pro.
Do you Can you publicly disclose what the Tata Martino activity was that you were like, nah, I'm not going there? Was it like making sure that you were incredibly flexible and that your right leg could fit behind your head, something like that, or what was it?
John, I wish I could tell you it was one or less than 20. It wasn't. It was, for one example, was I once watched the guys play 3v1 with weight vests on.
Ooh.
Something that I would not partake in. So yeah, just a lot of different things, and I'm not saying they're bad. It's just so different for somebody that had been doing it already for 10 plus years, and just
No,
body wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, well, and that's because you have to look out for your short term, meaning the team getting ready for a match, and your long term availability, because you have the foreknowledge of going, okay, if I do that, then I'm doing things that are counterintuitive to the health of my body and the health of my career. And so that's why I wanted to ask about fortitude and making sure that it's okay to challenge authority, but you've got to do it in the right frame of mind, and you're not doing it negatively to impact a larger situation. So folks that on your team are sitting there going, wow, he just stood up to coach. I guess I can do that too. And they take liberties when you're looking out for the collective, when folks may not see that you're looking out for the collective.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the key is to have communication with the coach and not show him up and not make a big deal, a scene of it. Those types of things are super important, because, like I said, I was definitely always a person to follow rules and orders and do things the right way and lead by example. So last thing I wanted to be perceived as somebody who was just, going in there.
You're a rabble rouser and a troublemaker.
Yeah, exactly. Do what I want type attitude, which is not the case.
How many times in your career did you have a coaching change within the competition of a season?
0.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Because the reason that I was, because the reason I ask obviously is what was going on here in Atlanta with Gonzalo Pineda being let go, and now Rob Valentino being in charge in the interim. And the reason I wanted to ask is because we're talking about coaches and how they respond to conversations and things like that. And I imagine it's also for individual coaches on staffs where you've got to talk to one coach a certain way, and maybe you've got to talk to another coach a certain way. They can take things, and you can be cool being a little bit more looser with your words with other coaches and things like that. And I didn't know what it's like to have to juggle having conversations with coaches within coaching staffs during a season, and how you have to navigate your words the right way to where you're still getting the message across to everyone on the staff, but you can do it differently across the board. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and I think that's always a valuable aspect of a coaching staff, right? To have coaches available for players to speak their mind that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable doing to the head coach, whether that be about training or something they see, or why, or tactics, or even the intensity of training, or how they're feeling. All these little things that, okay, then that coach can take to the next coaches meeting and say, hey, I'm hearing this, or I'm seeing this, or guys are feeling this way, in a more general sense. And that was something Rob was always tremendous at. So yeah, important to have those people on staff, and important for the athletes to know, who do you talk to about what.
Yeah, it's to be able to juggle those kinds of situations. And I mean, I would imagine it's how different is it to have to juggle who you are when you're on a national team, because you're coming in, you're parachuting into a situation, and you kind of know everybody around you, but how do you have to, does everybody know everybody? And to those third dimensional levels, do you have to walk on eggshells? How are you presenting yourself to a coach? Because it means that much more on a national level than it does at a club level at times, depending on the competition. Is it that much more impactful or important when it comes to doing things on a national team level when you're having to navigate all of these different ideas about players you don't really play with all the time, coaches you're not really with all the time? Does it amplify it in any way, or is it still navigating those same roads?
No, I think it's a little different. You're not around those coaches as often, so you don't have as close a relationship usually. You don't feel free to judge or pass on your thoughts. At least I never did, right? I was never a star of a national team or anything. And I'm sure that guys that were called in all the time, and, even some that were kind of bigger than the coach maybe felt differently. But for the majority of us, it was kind of like show up, shut up, and do your job type thing. And, that was it. And, again, it's just different when you're around a coaching staff all the time and you get to know them a little bit better. And I felt like with the national team, there was always different coaches around, guest coaches being brought in for this tournament or that tournament or this or that, and just so many different people. So, different vibe for sure.
Okay. And when it comes to representing your country, do you walk a little straighter? Do you, is your posture improved that much more? Just that little extra bit. Are you walking a little taller? And what does it do to add to your mental knowledge base about what it's like being a national team member, and then bring it back to the club level and to your day to day? How does that impact things in a downstreaming idea, I guess?
Yeah, I think that it definitely helps your confidence, right, when you're with the national team. Mm-hmm. But you also know that you need to be at the top of your game every minute that you're out there, right? Mm-hmm. And not that at the club level, you'd think that you're pushing yourself to be at that level as well. But you can see the difference usually, like, okay, when I'm with the national team, here's the level of training. Okay, when I'm with my club team, here's the level of training. This is where I need to be. And so I think that everything is just a little bit more under a microscope with the national team. And, like, you're still fighting for positions usually, right? With the club team, it's like, unless I'm doing something crazy, I'm a penciled in starter. But with the national team, it was like, you never know. It's changing all the time, and game to game, tournament to tournament. And so, it's different. But enjoyable experiences nonetheless.
At MF Parkhurst at BG Mentoring Time, it's the Friday Free Kick, and we are now in the second half. The fourth has put up the light board, and we're now in the second half of what's going on this week. And the reason that I wanted to ask about national team stuff is when it comes to the idea of dealing with your mentees who do stuff on a club level and then get to do things with other clubs of higher repute, for lack of a better word. They'll go to tournaments, and they'll go to multiple tournaments and prestigious things. What's it like dealing with mentees who have that experience of, okay, I've club, and then I got asked to do something else? Do you have the idea to help them navigate those kinds of things too, and how to handle themselves going forward?
Yeah, definitely. And just helping them understand that they're there for a reason and have the confidence to stick out their chest, even when they're with a group, maybe they don't even know anyone, and how that important that is. And, first impressions, but then also on the trip back, right? When you're going back to your, regular team, right? What kind of attitude do you have, and how has it affected you? And, are you still the same teammate, and still have the same attitude, but maybe a raised level on the field type thing, and the responsibility of those players to bring that level back to their club team to help elevate everyone. Going both ways, try and give them some support.
Yeah, and I would, what's it like to get those first conversations? It's like, yeah, I got my first call up, or B, I've been invited to go to this tournament, or C, yeah, the experience was great. How do I handle myself coming back? What's it like when you get to catch up with your mentees and they get that first phone call, have that first experience, get that first tournament, get that first weekend, and then get to bring the information back? What are those conversations like for you guys?
Yeah, really cool. I mean, that's, you remember your first calls and your first travels and first experiences and how awesome those were. So just letting them revel in those moments and enjoy those experiences, but also understand that, once does not mean twice, and twice does not mean three times. Like there's no set number of national team call-ups or extra call-ups that you'll get to anything, right? Every single one has to be continually earned. So, having just planting that perspective as well.
So when you're having the conversations with the mentees and reminding them that one does not mean two, two does not mean three, how do you do it to where, because we know that young folks today, they may handle that kind of information differently than we did when we were growing up. How do you get them to understand that one is not two, two is not three, but don't put excess pressure on yourself and overextend yourself to try to make two out of one, to make three out of two? How do you have them gauge context and say it's okay to enjoy it, but there's still work to do, but not put that added pressure on?
Yeah, it's challenging, and I think that if the players have had opportunities to do these types of things, what they're doing right now is good and it's working. So just, you don't have to accelerate more, but don't take your foot off the gas sometimes, right? It's like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't mean you have to go nuts and amplify everything, right? But don't get complacent.
How do you keep them from not going nuts or complacency? Because I know that's a delicate
Mom and dad.
Yeah, really. But sometimes mom and dad might. But there are times though these days where mom and dad, disappointingly, might be adding to that pressure from the top down.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's like, look, just chill out for a minute. It's
yeah,
like,
no, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, more tell mom and dad not to hit the gas too hard. It's you'd rather have a player hitting the gas too hard because they want to do it and the desire is there and the motivation's there, than mom and dad pressing the gas too hard, because that's where the burnout is more likely to occur and the motivation drags, and then it's short-lived.
Does it drive you nuts as a parent when you see other parents that want to put the pedal down and have things going at 120 miles an hour for their kids?
I just think it's a lack of knowledge and they want what's good for their kid. They think they're helping their kid. So, it's difficult. I don't know. The thing that really bothers me the most is when I hear parents yell at kids and they're just telling them like something that does not help in the situation at all.
Hoof it. Send it long, kick it out of there.
Exactly. For example, at this baseball tournament, right, we have a pitcher who's struggling to throw strikes. He's throwing everything high, and the dad's just, get it lower, pitch it lower. It's like,
bend your back, get that ironing board out of your pants.
What do you think the kid is trying to do? Right? That's not helpful. Like, if you've got a pitching tip, great. But I think that he knows that the ball's going high every time and he needs to get it down.
He's out there. He's the one doing it, man.
Same thing on the soccer field too. So yeah, frustrating to me.
I am not a parent. I have parents and pets that I take care of. I do not have children of my own, short of the furry one here that is guarding the office as he always does Monday through Friday. I would imagine that for you as a parent, it drives you crazy when you see parents doing what they're doing. And then I would also imagine that as an athlete, a professional athlete who has spent time in a professional league, that it might be that little extra added level of nuts when you see things that you want to just turn to them and say, look, take a time out, go to the car, turn on the AC, come back. I mean, it just seems like it's an added level of driving you nuts because of your level of experience that you've had. Am I far off?
Yeah, for sure. No, you're not far off. And I guess it's just different just based off of my experience, right? Where it's like, yes, this U10 or U12 tournament is really exciting and perhaps important for this weekend, but it's not important in the big realm of the journey or even a year from now. Like the kids won't even remember if they won or lost that tournament. So like if we can step away from this very, very short term, we realize that, it doesn't really matter if they win or lose this game. Right. And that's where parents, I think, get all choked up and crazy.
Do you and Greg, I guess, wish at times that you were able to be a peer? I won't necessarily say a mentor, but a peer to parents to help them through these situations? How much peer navigating do you guys do?
Some, yeah. Probably not enough. But it's definitely something that we want to address more in the future.
Yeah. So then give me your lesson plan. If you had your syllabus of peer conversations to get parents through these situations to where they're not driving their kids either crazy or away from things that they love to do, how would you navigate this syllabus?
Probably asking them, hey, why does your kid play? What are the benefits of playing in this sport or youth sports in general?
Yeah.
Right? What do you hope your child gets out of it? What do you think your child's goals are? Right. Matching those up against what the kid says as well. Because I think that we lose track of why the kid's in the sport and what we hope they get out of it. And, because a lot of that is things off the field, right? It's, yes, some parents want them to get a D1 scholarship, but most of us want them to learn the skills of life through sports and have awesome teammates and good friends and enjoy themselves. And so I think when we think back to that, it's like, maybe we can be a little less crazy on the sideline.
Okay. 2 more things, and thanks for hanging out as you always do. What's going on with Beyond Goals these days?
Summertime is always quiet. So this is a good time. Right now we're focusing on the business and direction and focus and vision, for the future and things, and setting up game plans and things. So working with a marketing group to do that. And, so they've been awesome to help us kind of, what do we want to do from this long term? Cause when we started, it was kind of like, well, we'll just get this thing going and see where it goes.
Yeah.
So.
And now that you're getting it going, it's like, okay, we need to do these next things. And you got things that you've never thought that you had to think about until now that you're having to think about them because things are blowing up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You had a really cool moment with RIFC where I was talking about capping a cap. The stadium is continuing to grow and you're having things that are being capped there on the site. So things are going with RIFC. You just got to turn draws into wins, my friend.
That is it. If half those draws were wins and half of them were losses, we'd be in a pretty good spot right now, but such is life. So we definitely need to win some more games, but yeah, it's awesome to see the stadium coming up. That was the last piece of steel. So yeah, up and up, and hopefully we'll get a few more wins. One quick thing, John, about the surface there, because I saw Michael talking about it.
Yeah.
This is not an Atlanta problem. This is a grass over turf problem that's existed ever since they've been doing it. Mm-hmm. The standards for the World Cup are much different, because I know the head for the Houston bid, and so the field has to be down weeks before the first game, right, where normally these fields are getting put down days before the game, and it's always terrible. It's always super soft. The ball doesn't bounce. It's dead. There's, cracks in between the grass and things. And so it's always like that and always has been. And the worst surface I've ever played on, John, was when we played Gold Cup semifinal in Dallas. They took the turf up and put grass just straight down on whatever that hard surface is underneath. And it was brutal. Brutal. So yeah, it's never fun.
Was that at the Cotton Bowl or Jerry World?
No, it was the new one.
It was at Jerry World, huh?
Jerry World, yeah.
Wow, they actually pulled oh man.
I don't know why they did that, but
you'd think that with all the money, he wouldn't have to worry about it there at Jerry World, but he did anyway. My friend, it's great to see things growing with Beyond Goals. Great to see things growing with Rhode Island FC, and we will catch up with you when the summer of soccer continues, my friend. Thanks as always for dropping by to end hour number 1 on Friday.
Of course. Have a great weekend.
There he goes, Michael Parkhurst.